What is up, my tricksters? It's your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh superhero back again, and with a video that was promised. You guys got my video where I was talking about unfair concepts in Yu-Gi-Oh recently. I asked you guys to get it to 10 likes, and you guys delivered. So I'm going to deliver on the promise to you to give you guys some budget cards that are going to be inherently unfair. Some of these will be like whole engines, some of these will be just one card, and some of these will be more of a concept of type, you know what I mean, like a type of cards. They all kind of do the same thing even though they're not related to each other, so just kind of bear with me. That's just kind of gonna be how we're doing it, and the idea is this should give you just enough information for you to get the ball rolling, so when you're looking for your unfair thing, you'll have a little bit of an idea what to look for. So, but before we get into that, I gotta do my little spiel. If you guys want to support the channel, Spring Store down below, get you some merch with my symbol on it or with Frank's face on it, or you can get your guys a Your Playmat custom sleeve. They'll put anything you want on the back, get you 10% off if you click that link, or use the code Ben10 YP at checkout. Yeah, they'll put you anything on you want on the back. I just chose my logo because, you know, I think it was cool. Anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. Alright, so the first one we got is Super Poly. This and all of the little fusions that kind of come with them. So, this is the first thing that I want to talk about. Like, and by the way, nothing in here should be more than like $20. And if it is like something closer to the $20 mark, that probably means you only need one. But like Super Polys are like $3 a piece, so boom, $3 you got it. And then most of these guys you can get for less than $1. I think the most expensive ones are Nether Soul and Starving Venom. And I saw when I was doing my research this video, like I saw each of them were like available for like $2 a piece. So yeah. And if you really want to cut corners, that's why I have the Eldritch, the Mad Golden Lord, because Eldritch is kind of the primary zombie monster right now. So if you really want to cut corners, Nether Soul would be better because it's more generic. But in a pinch, the Mad Golden Lord will work in a pinch. Super Poly is a really good example of a cheap, unfair card, and right now this is a budget player's best friend. All right, because honestly, if you can't afford things like droplets to negate stuff, I mean, honestly, Super Poly is really your next best option. I know Dark Ruler No More is also popular among us, but you can't do damage with that, and this also kind of gets rid of it allows us to like get rid of problematic monsters without the necessary or without the opponent being able to respond. So that's really important, and this card's actually going to be getting better as we progress in the format within the year, because you're about to see a very high influx of dark monsters seeing play. So, you know, get this stuff. If you don't already have it, you should get it while you can. Starving Venom Fusion is the best one, but in a pinch, Dragostapelia and Mud Dragon of the Swamp will do you just fine. In a pinch, they will do just fine. Like I said, Starving Venom is a really good one. You probably should have, but if you don't have it, don't panic. Deplexer's only in here for Cyburst ones, so have Deplexer for your, you know, in your collection, you know. And I use Deplexer because it's just as generic as Nether Soul, but it's just Cyburst instead of zombies. We used to use the Salamangreat one because Salad was the main one, but I use Deplexer because now there's more than one cyberspace deck now. So the idea here is also fun fact. You know how they're Parallel Exceed? Yeah, y'all know that level 8 monster that everybody uses to make a Baguska. You could also, like, you know, Super Poly the two of them, make this so they can't make Baguska. Just fun little counter move you can do. It's kind of funny. Anyway. Yeah, it probably wouldn't come up, but it is kind of funny when you do it. Anyway, so there you go. This one had to be the first slide because I played this card. Right now it's not good against anything like Flunderees, but you know, eventually Konami will probably make something that you can fuse two birds with eventually. So have these guys in your collection just to, you know, because it's going to come in and out of format. All right, so the next one I have is going to be more of an archetype that has it, but uh, because this archetype has a few unfair cards, and that is the Goki archetype. So basically, the Goki. The reason why I'm putting the Gokis in here is because one, they're they're very budget, very budget. You literally could will spend the bulk of your money getting staples. But this is an example of some unfair cards that already exist in the archetype. So Goki Rematch is almost as good as a Soul Charge. It's 2 free monsters. Finishing move is an OTK. And then, of course, you got Goki Giant Ogre and Power Load Ogre, which these guys also represent something we're going to be talking about in the next slide, and that is monsters that just don't care about effects. So let's go ahead and go over to the next slide. Yeah, just like in the previous one, where, where you saw the Goki Power Load Ogre, monsters that don't really care about the effects on the field, like even if they're not that big. And there are other ones that you can use to a lesser extent, like First of the Dragons, Cyberdark End Dragon's a little bit hard to summon, but these are examples of some unfair things that a budget player can get access to and get them out in the field. So look for stuff like this that just kind of looks at your opponent and says, I can't really do anything to stop you from doing anything, but I'm a big wall and I don't really care what you do. Outside of a kaiju, these guys are practically invincible. Alright, so the next card that we're going to have is kind of in the spirit of the Falcon monster, because this is the most prominent one you're going to see, and this is Waking the Dragon. Waking the Dragon, I think, is probably the most debatable card in here, whether it's really all that fair or not. It's more of a protection card that, especially if you're playing like a more back row based deck, like something like Dark Magician or Altergeist, you know what I mean, or Eldritch. This card kind of you put this into your back row and your opponent goes, ah, crap. Now I have to be scared to blow up the back row. Now, and I'm going to tell you right now, this one might be more of a side card than a main deck card. But there are players who will main deck it, and just because they know their opponent is going to aim for the back row, like Dark Magician players. I've seen them multiple times. Especially before Dragoon existed, play something like this. To kind of say, okay, well, if you blow up my Eternal Soul, you're usually going to take something else with it, like a Twin Twister, and this is going to punish you for that. And by the way, Ultimate Falcon isn't the only target. Last Warrior from Another Planet and Naturia Exterio are some other very popular targets, especially if you know your opponent plays a lot of back row hate cards. So Waking the Dragon is just really good for having a cheap and unfair card. And Naturia Exterio here got a reprint, and I've been seeing some for like less than $1 on TCG Player. And so yeah, basically these guys are, and they all serve a different purpose. They all kind of serve, some of them are more floodgate. This one, Exterio's negate. Falcon's just kind of the big beat stick that says I don't care, which is in the spirit of the other monsters we've talked about, like with the Gokis having their OTK card, their own soul charge, and 2 monsters that basically have, in a nutshell. Even though each of these cards also has a hole in their armor, like everything should. Yeah, it's just another card that's in the spirit of unfairness. Obviously, more competitive decks can play this too, but it's just this is more of an education thing where we're trying to show you what to look for if you're on a budget and you need unfair stuff. Just reiterating that. The next one I have is MultiAttackers. The big ones I have on here are obviously Ultimate Goku Tyranno, Tyrant Dragon, and Purgatrio. These guys can attack every monster on the field, and there's more monsters actually in the game that can do this. It's just these guys are the best ones that I can think of that can do this. Tyranno being able to do damage even if they're in defense mode. Purgatrio can do piercing battle damage and also gains attack points. And then you got Tyrant Dragon, who's just like, oh, I can attack everything and I don't care about trap cards. So each of these guys kind of serve a different purpose and can serve a different role. And there is a Link monster that you can play in Master Duel that's going to be coming, that eventually when it comes to the TCG, these guys will probably see more play, and that is called Track Black. It's a Cyberse monster. It looks like a bird, but basically, in a nutshell, to really short and quick to the point with it, that monster basically targets another monster, and every time that monster kills an opponent's monster in battle, you get to draw a card. So these guys will probably see more play in the future when Track Black finally gets to the TCG, because that's just a really good strategy. You know, especially if you have to play something like Dark Ruler no more. So just, you know, so this is another option for budget players who are looking for a way to play the game. And by the way, fun fact, with the Tyrant Dragon and the Invoked Purgatrio, just a little fun fact, both of these guys can be fusion summoned with, like, you know, with fusion replacement monsters. Just FYI, in case you were thinking about it, you know. So if you don't have Alistair the Invoker or want to play a Blue Eyes White Dragon, just, you know, if you're playing a dragon deck, this plus any fusion replacement monster, boom, you've got Tyrant. And if you're playing a fire monster deck, well, Invoked Purgatrio, done. Anyway, just a little fun FYI for you guys, so you can think outside the box. But yeah, this is another example of something unfair that budget players could easily get their hands on, is get a hold of these kinds of monsters that can just attack a bunch of times. The next one I have is Obedient Schooled. If this card is actually another one that's really cool, because this is like one card for 3 monsters. The only backdrop is that it traps you into playing beast monsters, but there's bunches of unfair monsters and stuff you can make with this. I've seen this thing be used in Dry Brigade. I've seen this get used in all sorts of things to make stuff like Naturia Beast, which is another unfair card that is uber powerful and also budget. The next card I have is Baguska. I know we mentioned that with Parallel World, Parallel Exceed, but this guy is another unfair budget card that you can get your hold of, because this guy is literally like, if your opponent isn't playing a Link-based deck, this guy can really hurt them. And he got reprinted recently, so he's really cheap and easy to get. So if you have level 4 or rank 4 access in your deck, this might be the very card for you. I know I enjoy Baguska just because, like, you know, it's kind of like oh, okay, cool, turn off all the monster effects. But he also has some more, I think, more, you know, he has better I would say drawbacks, but there's like other things you can do with him. Like, for example, you can overlay him with like the Vespinato, so you can like trade him in for a rank 5 robot and attack if you need to turn off his effect. So that's something that's really cool you can do. I also like the Tire Tapir, just because, and obviously Salamangreat, or, you know, a lot of Cybers-based decks, not Cybers, Link-based decks have also, with Parallel Exceed, have figured out, oh, we can use Baguska if we're up against decks that don't really use Link monsters. So, just that it kind of can become a one-sided floodgate in that scenario. So, keep that in mind. The next one we're going to talk about is the Stealth Kregan and Kregan Spawn. Basically, these guys are part of the Shark deck, but the reason why I'm putting them in here in my unfair stuff that they do is because basically these guys are uber cheap and uber unfair. So basically, on top of turning everything into a water monster, which actually does hurt a lot of decks, there are a lot of decks where the attribute is important. They need to be a certain attribute to continue their plays. This turns them into a water monster, and then they don't get to work. But Stealth Kregan and and if Kregan spawns on the field at the same time, these guys are literally Zodiac Trident. These guys are just pop, 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 and Stealth Kregan does damage. And if Stealth Kregan dies, you get the Kregan spawn, and then the Kregan spawn dies, it gets you back the Stealth Kregan from the graveyard. So it is like just a constant. Your opponent is just an uphill fight trying to get rid of these guys. These guys are, you know, maybe the Kregans should have looked like crabs. That's a bad joke. Anyway. But yeah, the idea is that these guys are unfair and cheap, and the Shark deck uses them exponentially. Now, the Shark deck does have some expensive cards, but obviously, fun fact, you could actually use these with any water monster. If you just want to make a rank 4 water spam deck, you can. You don't have to use Sharks to do it. It's just that Sharks are the most popular one that does it. Fun fact. Anyway, guys, so there you go. The next one I have is a bit of an old school move, and this is another unfair move because this is kind of a loop. Now, this move isn't quite as popular as it used to be. Obviously, there's a little more negation than when this card was at the height of its playability, or this combo was. This is the Frame Lord Omega and Rise to Full Height combo. Now, if you don't know what this is, because this hasn't been seen for a while, this is actually a very unfair combo, but it's also not the most competitive anymore because we have so much negation in here. But if you can find a way to make it happen, make it happen. Basically, what you would do is the Frame Lord Omega here has the ability to bounce off the field and take a snipe a card out of the opponent's hand, which is inherently unfair, right? It's like, I'll never get to punch him because he fucking leaps off the field. Combo that with Rise to Full Height, and you have a whole new mess for the opponent, right? Basically, then what happens is you snipe a card out of the opponent's hand, you chain Rise to Full Height to Omega's activation, right? Now, your opponent can only attack Omega, period. They're not allowed to attack at all, except to attack Frame Lord Omega. But since Omega isn't on the field, they can't attack because Omega left the field. That's how Rise to Full Height works. It says you cannot attack except to attack that specific monster. So that's the whole thing. Your opponent just cannot declare attacks while Omega's gone. And Rise to Full Height's effect to do that is a banish effect. So what happens is when Frame returns on the standby phase, you put that Rise to Full Height back in the graveyard, and you get to keep doing this over and over and over. Your opponent never gets to swing. You're constantly sniping cards out of their hand, which means that it might be a combo piece that might be very time dependent. So, like I said, this play isn't as viable as it used to be, but if you have the right backup for it, you know, you throw something out there that's like, oh, I don't really, you know, you throw the right extra protection like out there, like some kind of negate or something. Yeah, boom, done. You'll literally have a move your opponent is going to, you know, lose their mind trying to find a way to stop it. All right, so the next one we have is, I think this is this honorable mentions? Let me see. No, this is Mystic Mind. I forgot. All right, so yeah, we're not honorable mentions yet, but Mystic Mind is another unfair budget card right now. Literally $2. Like I literally paid like $2 a piece for a playset, so I paid a whole total of $6 for a playset of this card. It's not exactly fun. I know nobody likes to play against the Mystic Mind decks, but if you're on a budget and you need a card to slow your opponent down so that you can get whatever move you want to come up with on the board, Mystic Mind may be the way to go. As much as I hate to say that, because I hate this card, I also do think that this card should be at 1. Now I know the Mystic Mind players just had a brain aneurysm. Like, what? No! But yeah, this card should probably be at 1. But even at 1, I would still say you probably should get it because, like I said, this is a really good stall card. You throw this card out there, and your opponent has to play around this card to do anything, and then that should buy you enough time to either gather resources or, alternatively, you know, build up your counterattack. So basically, that's the gist of Mystic Mind. It's a cheap card that you can get right now. It's a really good floodgate. I'm toying with ideas for decks that can use it. I've seen Sky Strikers use it. I've seen dinosaurs use it. So it doesn't just have to be a floodgate type deck. It can just be I'm just gonna activate this until I can actually get on the field. Excuse me. All right, so now let's see. And the next thing we have, now we're at the honorable mentions. All right, for the final tail end of this video, the honorable mentions. Each of these guys are kind of unfair in their own way, and because I'm including AA Zeus here because I saw some that were selling for like $16, $15. So when I'm referring to Zeus here in your budget options, only buy 1. But if you're playing any kind of Xyz-based deck, Zeus is probably just a really good card for you to have. It's a card that literally is like, I'm gonna board wipe without destroying. It doesn't solve all the problems, but because it can get rid of monsters and spells and traps, it's kind of like this it's in this really unique zone. And if you happen to get to a really unfair move, you can do if you happen to have 2 of them, is you can actually overlay a Zeus on top of another one. Ain't that some BS? You literally can just go, okay, Zeus and another Zeus. It's, oh my god, such BS. I'm still kind of. That's another reason why I'm kind of like I think Konami should limit Zeus to 1, same as Mystic Mind, but they won't listen to me probably on that one. Then we got things like Inspector Border. Inspector Border is really useful, especially if you're playing a deck that doesn't have to go into the extra deck all that often, and doesn't rely on monster effects, and you are playing against opponents who do rely on monster effects. So yeah, and then of course this card can limit how many monster effects they can do based on the number of extra deck monsters they have in the field. So that can be really handy. That's why you see Inspector Border often sided in decks that are very back row based. I've even seen some Mystic Mind decks play this guy as a way to say, no. Even if you don't have any monsters in the field, I'm not going to let you activate anything from the hand or the graveyard. So then we got Boral Sword Dragon. This guy, I debated with myself of putting this guy in the same camp as Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and like Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. But the truth is, this guy most of the time is only attacking twice, and his unfair gimmick is like that he can steal attack points. That's his unfair gimmick. So, and the gold rare is like $5. So there you go. And then of course we got Darklaw here as an example of a splashable. Believe it or not, it is a splashable card. You can actually make a whole engine with Darklaw because if you can special summon Shadow Mist, you can go get Mass Change second or Mass Change if you're playing a deck that, if you just want to main deck the Shadow Mist. But you can also just main deck Mass Change 2 if you're playing a Dark deck, and you have access to Darklaw. Just, oh look, I happen to draw Mass Change 2. Now I have a floodgate that says no to your graveyard, and I can snipe cards out of your hand if you're dumb enough to draw or search them. So, and I, as a Lightsworn player originally in Yu-Gi-Oh!, I hate the Darklaw. Darklaw made me so mad. I could go on a rant and a tangent about Darklaw, but I won't. I think this video is long enough. Anyway, guys, let me know some budget unfair cards that you are thinking about playing. If this helped you, please give me a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. If you're new, consider subscribing to the Ben 2000 yugioh channel, and I hope you guys made it to the end. Anyway, guys, I'm your friendly neighborhood Yu-Gi-Oh! Superhero, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.